I would have done anything for her, and I did. Now that it's done, I have alone this. Nothing more, yet nothing less, for this is worth all the tea in China, no matter whether it changes the price. For this is a story worth telling, in a way worthy of being told, a gift of gab I have been blessed with. She helped me notice that. So it is here, and we set sail on our exotic adventure, one of those times you never forget. One of those stories you tell your grandkids like 80 times, and they say, yes, you told us this before, but you tell it again anyway, because again, it's a story worth telling. Please sit back, soak it all in, for this has always been for you my gift, my life. And that is the prelude of the first 20 pages that wonderfully Andy, who's here with me now, has released as of the 2nd of June, I think it was. How are you? It's been a while since we've done one of these.
Yeah, man, it's a pleasure, man. The last time we did it, we got to talk about the puzzle being broken, and it was an absolutely amazing show. This is, and I like to have a lot of fun with that. And speaking of having fun with people, I'm doing a giveaway every single day for the people that at Ashley I. Stevens. That's Ashley Isaac Stevens on Twitter. If you are have your notifications on, each of these next few days until I release the next puzzle in the next 10 days, I'm giving away a Genesis piece for whoever guesses the question right. It's going to be mathematics, code, riddles, just different things to make it interesting and different ideas to have people. So the first person to make a comment underneath this Twitter showing that we've actually gone live for this show and puts that they were the first one, puts first, they win the giveaway tonight. So that'll be on my notifications. That'll be under showing that this has been live. And it's good talking to you, Jim.
Oh, it's always good talking to you. I mean, you've been doing a lot of these, haven't you? You've been, we were just talking about, you've been doing mathematical puzzles on your Twitter. You've been doing binary puzzles. I think a couple of logical or verbal puzzles.
I mean, the idea, first of all, is to have fun and to not make it too complicated. And also, some people, like another person that won the other day was like, man, I'm really good at mathematics. Other person might be good at riddles. Another person might be good at binary code and stuff like that. So it's to give everybody a chance. And also, it's not so hard. It's pretty easy. So the idea is, I think every single one's been broken in less than like 30 seconds to a minute. Like some people were still reading it by the time and just got the notification by some time somebody else has already completed it.
Right.
So I'll have to step up the game a little bit. I think I have something coming up that might be interested, that might get some people to look. But we'll see. I like the quick notifications, like, oh, something's happening, because especially if you want to get that one of one, you're going to want to get that notification quick, because these are just for Genesis pieces. So, also, just to give people an idea, I wanted to go ahead and read the narrator and the introduction to the book real quick here, with you reading it like that, especially because I've read it so many times. But just to give people a feel of kind of how this kind of reads as far as the narration. So it kind of goes like this. So allow me to introduce myself. You can imagine I'm bowing. The name's Stevens, Ashley Isaac Stevens. It's an honor, I assure you, as well as I assure you that I know what I'm doing. If you just give me a chance to explain, as I'm far from rushing into things. I've thought long and hard about this, about how this should be told, manner, setting, etc. And this feels right. Some type of fireside chat, the ones that you can hear the fire crackling in the background. But that's not quite right either. That just describes a piece. Because in another way, it's like you and I are in a sphere. Nothing else remains, and quiet surrounds us. There I have no face. Here you have no name. And it's in that light that we begin. As the fire crackles, sit back, enjoy. For mark my words, this tale shall become legend, or my name isn't Ashley Isaac Stevens. I'm too apologetic, and I'm sorry for that, but an apology is owed nonetheless, and an explanation as well for many things. Let's begin by how I've decided to tell this story. I'm sporadic. My mind works at 1,000,000 miles an hour, so I grab what I can when I can. But that's no reason to jump into things, which I have a tendency to do, but not for something of this magnitude. For this is a fairy tale such as those that began once upon a time, but without the happily ever after, at least not for the star of our show. But its intention is to be for me, for you, your ending. For my ending, alas, ends tragically, as does much of the final act. But there's beauty even within these lines, within these pages, that hold the key to life, to salvation even. It's why I have gone to such great lengths to take such a long time to tell it and how it should be told. Sporadic. For I'll put my heart and soul into this. My breath won't last beyond the drying of the ink, but those words are worth my life, and I shall take it so that these words might spread. For I believe my own sacrifice might create value, attention even, and I believe people get satisfaction out of other people's misfortune. So this is my gift to you.
You know, it reminds me of it reminds me of the suicide note from Kurt Cobain, because Kurt Cobain's suicide note was oddly kind of it sounded altruistic. Well, I think I've got a double coming in, but it's like, you know, I'm trying to find, I have it good, very good, and I'm grateful. But the age of 7, I've done, you know, blah 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 blah. And then he, and at the end, he says, you know, please keep going, Courtney, for Francis, for a life which will be so much happier without me. I love you, I love you. You know, it's almost triumphant, but really misconceived in a really kind of sad way, because obviously he shouldn't have bloody killed himself. It's so, you know, and these are just the first 2 pages, and we, you know, and we have 24 to go. And I find it fascinating your sort of your style. You've got some interesting kind of concepts going on. Like you have, I'm too apologetic and I'm sorry for that. And then you also say asinine a couple of times, and then you decide to change it to ass of 9. You say, like, later on you reference it like, I didn't realize how I was making myself an ass of 9. I think that's sporadic kind of looping and like self-referential kind of like motifs. I think it's very interesting. It's kind of a writing style I'm not too familiar with, so that's really cool.
Yeah, I mean, one of the things, me coming from the South of the United States, the South is really known for their metaphors, like ain't no thing but a chicken wing on a string in the middle of spring at Burger King kind of thing, you know. They do these metaphors kind of things, and so you know, that's one of the things. And but I also like to play with, like, I joke with my writing is like me playing with my food. So, like, I bring up the word assume, and I say, by assuming you make an ass of Uma Thurman, and you don't want to make an ass of Uma Thurman. You know what I mean? So it's like that same, you're talking about that ass of 9. You know what I mean? It's just playing with your food. And as I said, I don't think I'd want to make an ass of Uma Thurman anyway. So, I mean, that kind of makes sense as well. But yeah, it's just, I mean, it was funny because of me, the way I wrote it and playing with my food so much. Me working with the editor to finish the writing of this book, it took a couple of years and that was like pulling teeth. That was like the most agonizing pain because of her being like, okay, what is it, or what is this, when I was just trying to play with my food too much. But I think, you know, putting it the way that she needed it to be done, and me still getting to play with my food at least a little bit, but at least cleaning my plate so I got dessert, became the overall goal, and I think we reached that.
That's so funny. Yeah, metaphors on top of metaphors. It's very, when you do the assume Uma Thurman thing, it reminds me a lot of Cockney slang as well. You know, you know, like up the apples and pears is like up the stairs. You know, and no one really uses that anymore in Britain. But yeah, the writing style is interesting, and I like what I read about. You know, like it begins with, like, you know, I assume Ashley's significant other crashing a car into his house because he wouldn't let her in through the door. But then that doesn't even become the primary problem, because there's actually something else that's caused more of a mess than even the car coming through. So it's already this, it's like I've walked into like some kind of chaotic, not a crime scene, but just kind of this very strange arena of chaos. You can just tell how chaotic these couple's lives are.
Yeah, and I mean, that's one of the interesting things, because I actually wrote it linear. What you're talking about, this book is written in 3 acts. The first 2 acts are prevalent through most of, you know, 2/3 to 3/4 of the book is between Acts 1 and Acts 2. Yeah. Act 1 being sweet beginnings, Act 2 being the bitter end. And So the thing is that I wrote it linear, and we even edited linear, but there became a point where the editor and myself was like, man, we really need to have something just pop off right off the rip as far as with this book. And boom, like all of a sudden looking at this act 2 scene 1, and all of a sudden it became clear that this was going to be kind of like the way Pulp Fiction was done, where you have to kind of go back and be like, whoa, you're jumping into the story and then jumping back to the beginning of the story. So I mean, I just kept it simple as far as like act 2, part 1, act 1, part 1, and just kept on with 1, 2, 3, scene 2, scene 3. But it was interesting that as I started to flip them together, like all of a sudden in Sweet Beginnings, in the first part, it talks about not only did she drive that home, but into the house. I wrote that years before I wrote the scene of her destroying his house and saying, okay, I'm coming in. Here I come. Like, ready or not, I'm getting into this house. Like, you're not stopping me. And so, so it's just interesting how as these folded in on each other between Act 2 and Act 1, that the placement just ended up being like this beautiful piece of poetry and synchronistic in itself. So so watching it go back and forth and kind of looking at the bottom of the page and being like, wait, am I in Sweet Beginnings, or am I in the bitter end? And like, oh, okay, I'm understanding a little bit better what's going on now that I understand this is like the bottom or this is the top. If that makes sense.
Yeah. And it's often to like, it's like it's a chaotic thing. I mean, like, when you talk, you hear about soldiers, they'd be in such a terror that they wouldn't know which way was up, and I find that kind of the disorientation kind of probably favors the book and what the contents are quite well anyway, in terms of the structure, from what I can tell, at least. I think it is. It's an interesting thing, and I had something else to say about. I find it really funny when she crashes the car into the house, and then she just shrugs it off. She's like, "Yep, well, this is." It's like you sort of immediately get a taste of what the relationship between these two. And I imagine this isn't the first time something like this has happened.
Yeah, I mean, it's what was really interesting is kind of just being able to see these scenes. I don't put them in too particular of a place or this or that, but it's whether it's the car and trying to describe like the details of the car or this or that. It's the impact of the scene, and I leave a lot of the rest of it up for interpretation. The main reason I do that is because I felt these scenes, and I recognize these scenes. But besides getting the impact, like there's a scene later on, and I don't mind giving 2 little scenes away because it'll give the impact of those scenes later. But there was this scene that she's smelling this flower, this rose later, and I see her close her eyes, and I see her just take in the smell of this flower, not in just to say like to stop and smell the roses, but to stop and smell the roses and take it in, like as far as closing your eyes, and him just watching her close her eyes and just taking in that smell. Saw that scene in my head for a decade almost, and so it's interesting seeing these moments and knowing you're going to write about them and knowing that at a time they're going to become prevalent, and then all of a sudden it happens, and so that's in part of what you're saying, and as far as getting to share this right now, after so long, I just want to say how amazing it is to be able to discuss whether it's the intro, but there's also a scene that I want to bring up before I finish off, like as far as talking about this, and I want you to pull up page 3 for me real quick.
Yeah, of course I can.
What I did with this book is you talked about the sporadicness of it. There's quotes. I even have a soundtrack to this book where you're supposed to actually sit back with the song and actually stop the book and listen to the song as far as the soundtracks. But go to page number 3.
Done.
So there's it's a little bit farther on. That's the introduction. That's the introduction page.
Okay.
You're gonna have to have to go to actual page 3. not Roman numeral 13.
I got you. I got you. Oh, I understand now. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Okay.
Yeah, there's a little gray section that I'm going to just read real quick. This is Theodore Roosevelt in a speech to the Hamilton Club. It's on April 10th of 1899. And it says, far better is it to dare mighty things, to win glorious triumphs, even though checkered by failure, than to take rank with those poor spirits who neither enjoy much nor suffer much, because they live in the gray twilight that knows not victory nor defeat. Yeah. And I wanted to start with my book with that, because that's the thing. It's just whether it's right now with putting this out there, and this is to so many other writers, so many other artists, so many people that have some idea that they want to do, like, to tell some people like this, Formula 409. I don't know if you're familiar with that. I know in the States we have that. It's a cleaning product. The reason it's called Formula 409 is because 408 times the guy failed. And so the thing is like, even though checkered with failure, like to keep on trying, to keep on, to be able to know what victory is because you actually try, even though sprinkled with failure, then to not even try, just to not have victory nor defeat because you live in that great twilight. That's what this is all about, is that I'm actually kind of putting it finally out there. I'm finally doing something I've always wanted to do. And I look forward to the victories, and I look forward to learning from the mistakes that I make along the way of this journey.
Well, this is the. I mean, this. I mean, if people who watch people watch the previous 2 or 3 episodes I've had with you, we know already that that there's a huge theme of closure and wanting to forget about a failed relationship when we actually, and when we must embrace the successes and the defeats of relationships. We can't just mark out we can't mark things out because they were unpleasant. And the thing is that we often misremember them. Like you said, like, oh, I had such a wonderful relationship with this person, but now I have such a sour taste in my mouth because it's over, or because it didn't end well. When in fact, like, as exactly as like the fact that you've included that Roosevelt quote makes complete sense to me. In the context of the motifs of this book. So
yeah, no, I mean, and it's even reminds me with you even saying that it's about a person bearing his chest, because how many times do we get in an argument with people or this or that, and then we have a friend come that's knows both of them. It's like, what happened? All of a sudden the halo goes over your head. You're like, oh, I didn't do anything wrong. I was. Well, you see the golden like wings, and like you're stating everything. Then he talks to your other friend, and it's like, what? He intentionally tripped me and threw me down some stairs. So I guess there's that as well too. Is how often do we want to make ourselves look like the good guy instead of admitting the wrongs and what we did, as far as how many times have we wanted to have closure? And then we're in the conversation and we say one wrong thing, and it's like, no, I didn't mean it like that. No, I'm sorry. And then it goes off the rails, and next thing you know, they're hanging up on you. Yeah. So there's that within this work is a way to be able to have closure on so many things you don't have the opportunity to actually have closure in.
Yeah. And that's like, I mean, yeah, I mean, I even in my book, I briefly sort of talk about like how closure is it's so rare. We rarely find closure. When someone dies, we rarely say everything we want to say to them. In fact, many times it ends in an argument or like a fuck you or whatever it is, and then we find out, no one that I knew who has died I've ever like genuinely found closure from. It's always been some kind of like, oh yeah, I'll catch you, catch some other, it's really rare. I mean, there's some yogic that says something. This is a bit off topic. There's a yogic that says it's a very fascinating idea, and I really do believe it. And the idea is that we only grieve someone because we didn't love them completely while they were alive. That's a crazy idea. Like, and I was like, and it's like, if we fully unconditionally, boundlessly loved someone while they were alive, at the end we would just be like, yes, I'm happy with this. That's quite a tear-jerking idea, actually. Now I think of that, that's kind of
I mean, and I think there's more, I think within their consciousness, as far as within the Eastern philosophy of whether it was Buddhism, the consciousness of what happens, after we die, I think has to be taken into consideration as well in those contexts, because of missing somebody and stuff like that. I don't know within their consciousness, you miss them in that same regard because that you'll see them again. If that makes sense. So if you've lived that life that you did everything you needed to, you don't need to miss them because that consciousness will be back at some point. But no, I agree with you 100%. And I mean, this is exciting. I'm going to be getting ready. I'm making the next puzzle. We're going to be doing, as I said, these giveaways up to this next puzzle for the Genesis piece, so that the people that can get involved. Just to go ahead and say this within this, and I'm looking forward to talking about this more in the future. As I've stated in a couple of things, this is the first piece of 12 pieces. The idea is you need all 12 pieces to have the ability to be able to get a limited edition first run of the actual physical copy of the book. So this is the first piece of 12 pieces that people will need to collect. The idea is to have where the possibility of being able to pick up pieces on the secondary market for people that did not get the Genesis piece that want to collect each of the 12 pieces. Those pieces are also going to be burned to be able to get this book. So it should also make it where there's less pieces at the end and creates more value from the burning of the pieces and not having a total of 100 anymore. So it's just to go ahead and state that, because I'm just giving away the first one, but there's 11 more and people need to get a hold of each one. And that's why they need to have their notifications on, because I'm going to make sure it's the people that participate and are there seeing it happen.
Yeah, for sure. And I don't think we can stress that enough. People keeping alert because I think this Pandora's box of a treasure hunt and marketing tactic that we're working in tandem with you on is it's going to get really crazy very quickly. And people who are tuning in who aren't fully aware of everything that's going on. There is talks of like physical locations and needing your GPS trackers on to find tokens and actual artifacts somewhere out there in the States or whatever, like we know in the land, which is a thank you, which is a fascinating idea, and it's all kind of in the works at the moment to sort of think about how that's going to be employed and what else is going to happen. But I'm sure I'm sure it's going to be very exciting, and I'll be with you all the way.
It's already starting to grow. I've been able to talk. What this has spurred out as well is being able to talk to people about their passion as well. And talk about some of the work that they're working on. And I've started to work with a couple of people on that. And I mean, I think this is, even from, the perception I've been able to grow with throughout the years of creating this, time flashes so fast and things change so quickly that I want to make sure it's relevant. So, where some of the puzzles and some of the things have already been worked out, I'm looking forward to some of the other puzzles starting to create themselves by working with others and some fascinations that other people have. So I mean, I think this is going to be not only a participating thing, not only a getting out there thing, not only listening to the story and being involved with that. I'd like to give a shout out to what is a person named CryptoSeek. That's doing actually puzzles of his own. And so check out what he's doing. But he decided to use one of my riddles just out of the blue. He decided, hey, I want people to check out the first 20 pages of your book, and I'm going to give a clue, and they're going to win one of my things just by reading your book and being able to figure out what I'm trying to come up with. And I gave away something as well. And because of the involvement and because of people being interested in doing that, we're already talking about doing it again. So even with other puzzles and other little giveaways and stuff like that, like there's ways that other people can interact within this project. And I think, you know, the more as far as artistic, the more the merrier. And there's plenty of places to be able to get in and be able to kind of show off some work.
Yeah, man. Yeah, and that collaboration thing's always been a bit of a centerpiece of this whole thing from the beginning, you know. And with the whole, you know, the never-ending choose your own adventure, which writers who are listening and will listen after the fact, they can get involved. Please join our Discord at WIPP Publishing. Yeah, if you go onto WIPPpublishing.com, WIPPpublishing.com, you know, yeah, like you'll find our Discord, and we are constantly looking for new writers, and we have myriad projects for you to work on, especially the choose your own adventure, as it is a you know, it's a group effort, entirely based on the idea that writers should writers deserve to get recognition, you know, and and the fact that a writer can only write 5 pages before they get bored or busy or depressed or whatever shouldn't be a limitation for artists to just, you know, to self-actualize and reap rewards for doing so, which is, you know, and now this technology allows us to do that effectively and rewardingly, with NFTs and blockchain, all the rest of it, which is why it's a fascinating world to be in.
Well, and I'll tell you what, with what you're saying right there, what people will find, and I'm sure a lot of people know the aspect of it takes 3 weeks to build a habit. I don't care if you're doing a dream journal and you want to start remembering your dreams each night. If you start writing them down when you wake up in the morning and trying to remember what maybe after 3 weeks, it's almost like your brain doesn't believe for 3 weeks that you really have the intent, that you really want to do this. And after you prove it to the brain, all of a sudden, the next thing you know, 3 weeks later, you're writing down in your journal dreams like for pages and pages. It's the same thing with writing. It's the same thing with art. Like, if people have the intention to want to start writing and to see what they'll do, if they just take that dedication of just writing a couple of pages each day, wait about 3 weeks, and all of a sudden your brain will be like, oh, okay, we're doing this. And the next thing you know, you're into it, and you're going to be upset when you don't take that time and write a couple of pages that day, you know?
Right. Yeah, exactly. With me writing my book, you know, it would you know, because I was after so long, you know, I was so used to writing every day. That was what I did most of the pandemic, actually, you know, from March until October really was when I was just writing every day. I would feel weird when I didn't write. I would feel I would feel lonely almost, you know. I'd feel like, oh, this is, you know, like this, you know, and it was a part of me, you know. I'm currently working around, like, you know, negative emotions and negative thinking, and sort of limiting myself and being like, oh, I can't be too happy, then I'll be vacuous and stuff. And that's kind of it's been a problem for me. I want to sort of be kind of like in the dirt, you know, kind of like knowing what suffering is. And I've realized it's kind of like, this is a pointless venture. I don't get anything solved by doing this. So I'm trying to do a 3-week thing where I'm just like letting myself, like, not sabotaging my own positive well-being, I suppose. And it's right, like 3 weeks is 3 weeks to 4 weeks it works, because your brain, you know, you habituate it, and your brain then says, okay, this is how we'll do things from now on. We'll restructure things in accordance to how you're telling me to do it. You know, neuroplasticity it's real, man, and it's a crazy thing.
Yeah, and not only with what you're saying, so that's the funny thing, and I talk to people about this a good bit, is that your brain doesn't understand, like, why you want certain things to happen. But let's say you're used to, like you said, like as far as depression, or let's say around 3 or 4 o'clock, all of a sudden your brain is like, hey, this person wants to be upset every day around 3 or 4 o'clock. I don't know why, but let's go ahead and hit with this, you know, this different chemicals to make them upset. And every day you're like, I don't know why I get so upset. It's like your brain says, hey, this is what you want to do.
Yeah.
You want to be upset. This is how you get your chemical makeup each day. So you have to start realizing that. And when it starts coming on, being like, nope, nope, I don't want to do this anymore, because the brain doesn't know any better.
Yeah, it's a real, I mean, it's because I firmly believe that we do invite the horrible ideas in. I think we need to give them permission to come in, and I never want to say it's someone's fault that they are depressed or anxious or mentally or whatever it is. It's a real hard one to work out how to describe it, but I do think we have a responsibility, and we do have the power to get ourselves out of it. We have to be willing to like let go of everything else, though. We have to say, you know, there's a thing where it's like what I think that I'm thinking about, like, you know, where it's people might not want to be depressed, but they might value something that causes the depression more than getting rid of the depression. Maybe they think that if they lose this part of their identity, someone that's focused on, like, you know, oh, I know what it's like to be upset, I can empathize, I want to be grounded and mature. If I lose depression, I might lose this part of me as well. Or, you know, if I lose this part of me, I might lose my depression, but I'm not willing to get rid of this part of me. And it's a silly limitation. I think to deny yourself of that is very limiting, and there's no necessity for it.
Yeah, so, I mean, you know, that's what you were talking, like with you talking about your writing. I relate in a lot of ways. Like when I obviously with the synchronistic, and when I was writing, it came from an emotionally charged spot, and I was emotionally charged in a lot of depression or sadness, and I really felt like I got the best out of my writing skills during that type of feeling. But you know, and so I had to do that. In this type of purge within this book, because it's kind of a dark to light. Now, the thing is like what you were talking about is whether it's actually suiting you or not. Is that depression, and is you writing about that depression helping you purge yourself of it? Or has it just become like this cycle and it's not really helping you anymore? If it's not helping you anymore, then you got yourself a problem, and you need to work yourself out of that. But if it is getting something out, it can be a positive, but you just, you know, it's you know, I've had different friends. I have a stepbrother that, you know, wanted to kind of write, you know, his father and everything at one point, or this or that. And I told him, like, hey, put it all down. And the situation is, don't expect anything in return. You know, don't expect from what you're saying or what you're doing to affect the other person. Do it for yourself.
Yes.
And get it out yourself. And don't expect some kind of, like, if they just ignore it and just like, whatever, you did it at least for you. You didn't do it for the response.
So and that's it, man. I mean, like, if we are, you know, if we're using some sort of depression as a mechanism to actually help us in life and help and increase our quality of life, then sure. But we've got to be very careful, because, you know, after a while you're sort of, you know, if you're saying, like, oh, I have to be depressed for my art or whatever, I don't buy that, especially when there's myriad ways to create art. You know, I've started playing more jazz as opposed to, like, more kind of blues, like kind of sad stuff, because I you know, it's a genuine change, and it's good to do a change. There's a brilliant quote. It's a really kind of, like, you know, it's one of those sorts of Instagram philosophy quotes, but I quite liked it. It's called, you have two choices: evolve or repeat. And I quite like that. You know, you either, you know, and you choose every day whether you evolve or repeat. And
that's perfect, man.
It's good, isn't it? Yeah. And I was thinking, you know, it's kind of like, how long do we keep going these same cycles? You know, how long do we repeat the same mistakes over and over again before we can actually, you know, do something different and you know, realize ourselves in ways that weren't possible before. But anyway, I suppose to go back to the book, this is kind of the great tragedy of Ashley, because I think he doesn't. He himself arrives at a kind of, you know, a pitiful conclusion where he's like, no, I can't go any further than this. And this out, you know, this sort of misguided altruism, you know. Oh, I'm doing this for you guys, you know. This sort of triumphant kind of way of doing it, you know. I'm doing this for you.
Yeah. I mean, you're exactly. I mean, that's also why I wanted to do it in such short bursts. As far as just releasing about like 20 pages at a time throughout this process, is because, you know, first, not only is it a manic depressant when you're jumping between sweet beginnings and bitter ends, and oh, I loved her, I hated her, I loved her, I hated, you know, and like it just, I mean, it's too much of a frail kind of thing to, and you kind of really got to chew on each piece a little bit. And so that's the way I designed it. But yeah, you know, as well, you know, the ignorance, like as far as him feeling like he has something as far as this is, I think part of it. But, you know, it's just like somebody trying to find like feeling in their life that they've lost everything. And then with that searching of, as far as finding some kind of meaning, they, you know, fool themselves into thinking this is the type of meaning they're supposed to be getting out of this.
Yeah, and I mean, this is kind of the danger, like, you know, when people attribute like one specific rigid meaning to something, you know, it's like, oh, this is what that meant, has to be what that meant, so I'm going to take it like this, you know. What's lovely about meaning is that it is subjective, it's not objective. That's the brilliant, you know, and you can interpret it, and a lot of people find that quite unsettling, and it's like, no, that's the way it should be. That's the, you know, like because when we radicalize and we absolutize meaning, you know, oh, this happened because of this, you know, oh, this person looked at me strange because I'm a piece of shit, or, you know, I have to die because of these events in my life, you know, it becomes a real danger, you know. Like, we can let's swim in ambiguity, you know. Ambiguity ain't so bad, you know, and it's okay, so, you know, it's okay to know that you know nothing.
Yeah, and that's I mean, you know, you know, it's almost like this mandala, like as far as like, you know, you watch this beautiful piece of work get made, and you see the attention to the detail, the meditation, the fine, like the looking at such a precise detail, making such a beautiful piece, just at the very end, just wash it all away, where you're just like, what? That was absolutely gorgeous. And it's knowing that, and I think that's where the fight is. I think that's where, like, being okay with, I don't know, like, what are we supposed to, what is success in life? You know, what is this? Like, between Ashley feeling like maybe he didn't succeed in his life, so him going to these to the brink of disaster to try to make himself feel like at least he succeeded in some way. How many of us, like, look at the end of the day, like, can be just okay with the success we had? Like this, I don't know, you know, I think it's more of that. It's almost the day and age where I found sometimes when I go on a trip or this or that, I take a picture and the likes or the shares are people saying, wow, that looks beautiful. Why should that give me some kind of satisfaction instead of just me having that moment myself in that moment? You know, I think that's where we're on this paradox of, and I think, you know, I think there's a little this Ashley within all of us in that, and just recognizing and becoming at peace. You know, it's almost the letting go or the losing of that I think this book is talking about expressing.
It's absolutely, this is the thing. I mean, this is the thing about relative meaning. I mean, for like you know, like even having, you know, even being able to live in America and be able to have enough food to eat, you know, a lot of people don't even have that. It's success. It's a fascinating, you know, success is not only is it relative, but it can also be very much mediated by hidden forces. You know, it's like success may not just mean, you know, waking up and feeling happy in the morning anymore. It might mean, you know, being able to keep your business afloat during a pandemic, or predicting stock market crashes, or whatever it is. And that success is always contextualized to kind of like a structure that you didn't really ask for, you know, like a late capitalist structure, for example, you know. So we end up kind of being like, well, in that, you know, like, well, how you know, what's the point in even asking if I'm successful if I don't even get to choose what success means? I haven't even got the choice. You know?
Yeah, I mean, that's it, man. I'm just, so, I mean, I think, I've had to kind of go down to a coffee house, and I apologize if there's been like some traffic here on the road.
It's been fine, man. It's been absolutely fine. When you talk, all the other sounds go, like, they duck out automatically. So you're absolutely fine.
No, so that's I really appreciate, Jim, you taking the time, like each of the, like, as we said, like, this is not the first one and this won't be the last. And between also other works that you have been listening to, and you have another one tomorrow with Easy,
we do. We do. So yeah.
Yes, and so the thing is, you're putting in a lot of the grind here as well, and so I appreciate you taking the time. Also, like, when is the Easy tomorrow, and what's that going to be on?
So Easy was at the Bitcoin fair, Bitcoin meet and greet in Miami last week, I think it was. That's why he couldn't join us for our Token Smart event last week. He was there this week on Wednesday, so that's going to be really exciting. Yeah, fingers crossed that's still going to work. That's going to work out. We're going to talk on Sunday and see how the hell Bitcoin fair went. And it's funny because Bitcoin's now gained a bit more kind of legitimacy because it was kind of falling up with Elon Musk, and now El Salvador has just turned it into legal tender. So it's the first country in the world where you can pay your taxes in Bitcoin. That's huge. That is huge for this world. That's huge for the world of it. Yeah, and I think it's going to be remembered. I think people will look back on it retrospectively and be like, oh yeah, okay, that was a big pivotal moment in just the same way that, like, I don't know, I'm trying to think of another success story revolving around the US dollar that hasn't ended in the US imperializing and destabilizing that country, but I can't think of one off the top of my head. Yes, that's all it. And thank you so much, Andy, for coming on once again. We'll do this again in a few weeks when the second puzzle comes out, if I got that right. And yeah, brilliant. And as for everyone, please subscribe, retweet, follow us, like and subscribe, all of that sort of stuff. Yeah, watch previous episodes if you give a hoot about anything that we in the space are doing. I'm sure there's something here for you. We've got TikTok and Instagram now, where we sort of try and post daily sort of crypto quips. I'll put them somewhere in the description or in the comments as well. And yeah, you've been great. Thank you very much. Enjoy the weekend. Stay hydrated if you're in the Northern Hemisphere. And I'll see you all tomorrow. Thanks, Ash. Thanks, Andy, so much. All right.
You have a good one.
Thanks very much, guys. Thank you. There we go.